So my last video I made was about every official summer and winter Olympic mascot, and people seem to have liked it. So in this video, I'll be taking a look back at the history of every official Paralympic mascot. And just like last time, I'm going to give each Paralympic mascot a score, and at the end we'll see what I consider to be the best Paralympic mascot. Before watching this though, I would recommend you watch my video on the Olympic mascots. Also keep in mind that not all the Paralympic mascots have as much backstory behind them as the Olympic mascots, so some entries may be shorter than others. And finally, before we begin, if you enjoy this content, a subscription and a like would be greatly appreciated, and maybe even leave a comment as to who your favorite Paralympic mascot is. And with that now out of the way, let's begin. The first two official Paralympic mascots were these two squirrels named Noggi and Joggi, and they were the mascots for the 1980 Summer Paralympic Games, which took place in Arnhem, Netherlands. And these two were chosen by a contest that was held by the Dutch broadcasting company AVRO. And the participants in the contest were asked to send in handmade models of characters that could be mascots. And the winner was a person named Neki Oprinson, who created a pair of squirrels named Noggi and Joggi, and this picture here is the only available image for them online. I'm gonna give Noggi and Joggi a score of 5 out of 10. Next up is the mascot for the 1984 Summer Paralympic Games that took place in New York, United States, and in Stoke Mandeville, England. And the reason it took place in both England and in the United States is because it was simply split up into two competitions. And the competition that took place in Stoke Mandeville had no mascot, but the New York one did. And here he is, Dan D. Lion. As you can see, he is clearly a lion, and he wears running shoes and jogging clothes, and he got his name from a vote. And just like the last mascots, there is only one picture available for him online. Dan D. Lion gets a score of 4.5 out of 10. Next up are these two Asian black bears known as the Gomdori. I'm almost certain I said that wrong. And the name Gomdori is the Korean word for teddy bear, so that's how they got their name. The Gomdori are the mascots for the 1988 Summer Paralympic Games that took place in Seoul, South Korea. As you can see, these two have their legs tied together, and it is meant to symbolize the ability to overcome adversity through cooperation. And the colors of the ribbon, rope, whatever that is actually the colors of the Olympic rings, so that's a nice little detail. The Gomdori get a score of 6.5 out of 10. Next is the official mascot for the 1992 Winter Paralympic Games that took place in Tignes, France, and this mascot is very unique. Here he is, Alpi, who is supposed to be a mountain. Specifically, he is meant to look like the summit of the Grand Mott Mountain. And if you're wondering what this thing that he's riding on is supposed to be, well, it's a monoski. And each of the colors in Alpi's design has a meaning to it. The white is meant to represent purity and snow, the green is meant to represent hope and nature, and then the blue is meant to represent discipline and water. I'm gonna give Alpi a score of 7.5 out of 10. The next mascot came during the 1992 Summer Paralympic Games that took place in Barcelona, Spain, and the mascot this time around was an armless human girl named Petra. Petra here was the first time the Paralympic mascot was directly related to the Olympic mascot. And going forward, this would be the case for most Olympic and Paralympic mascots. Petra is described as being positive and extrovert, independent, energetic, and brave. And alongside the Olympic mascot for that year, Kobe, appeared in lots of advertisements and merchandise, and even appeared in an animated television series titled The Kobe Troop. And while looking for information about Petra, I found something I didn't discuss about Kobe in my last video. And that was that Kobe appeared in some live action Israeli shorts. I don't really have anything to say about them, but it's just something strange I thought I'd bring up. Petra's design gets a 7 out of 10. The next mascot was a one-legged troll named Sondre, who was the mascot for the 1994 Winter Paralympic Games that took place in Lillehammer, Norway. Both Sondre's name and design were decided in a contest, and the character of a troll fits well due to its history in Norse mythology, and his name comes from Sondre Norheim, who was a famous Norwegian skier known as a pioneer of modern skiing. I give Sondre's design a 6.5 out of 10. Next up is the mascot for the 1986 Paralympic Games that took place in Georgia, United States, and the mascot was a phoenix named Blaze. And a phoenix was chosen as the mascot for the games in Atlanta, Georgia, because it was meant to represent Atlanta's rebirth after the events of the Civil War. Because in legends, the phoenix is a mythical bird that obtains new life after rising from the ashes. After the games that year, Blaze continued to live on, in the form of the mascot for Blaze Sports America, which is a non-profit that provides sport opportunities for people with disabilities, and Blaze has gone on to be recognized as the most famous disability sport mascot in America. I'm gonna give Blaze's design a 7 out of 10. The next mascot came during the 1998 Winter Paralympic Games that took place in Nagano, Japan, and the mascot was a white rabbit named Parabbit? Something like that. I'm just gonna call it Parabbit. The most noticeable design choice here for Parabbit is that one ear is green and one is red, and this was done to make it look like the logo for that year. And the name Parabbit was chosen by a vote, and the winning name was selected after winning 3,408 votes. I'm gonna give Parabbit's design a 5 out of 10. Next is the mascot for the 2000 Summer Paralympic Games that took place in Sydney, Australia. And the mascot was a frill-necked lizard, an animal which is native to Australia, named Lizzie. Being a native animal to the country is not the only thing about Lizzie that relates to Australia, though. Her frill is actually in the shape of the country, and then her color scheme is meant to represent the color of the land in Australia. And Lizzie's strength, determination, and attitude are said to symbolize all the athletes that participate in the Paralympic Games. Lizzie's design gets a 7.5 out of 10. The next mascot that we're looking at is an otter named Otto, who was the mascot for the 2002 Winter Paralympic Games that took place in Salt Lake City, United States. An otter was chosen as the mascot due to its history in Utah, specifically with Native Americans who considered it to be a powerful animal. And for some reason, Otto and the Olympic mascots for that year have lore, like a lot of lore. So here is some of Otto's lore, since there's nothing else really to discuss about him. Otto is a friendly sea otter who is an only child and lives with his parents in the Wasatch Mountains. Otto's favorite foods are fish, frogs, and crayfish, and his favorite hobbies are diving into water, then speeding towards the bottom. He also likes running, and when he's tired, he likes to wrap himself in kelp to rest. And his favorite colors are red, green, and blue. I guess he couldn't just pick one. And I think that's enough lore about Otto. Otto's design gets an 8 out of 10. The next mascot was a seahorse named Proteas, who was the mascot for the 2004 Summer Paralympic Games that took place in Athens, Greece. Proteas gets his name from a god of water in Greek mythology, and a seahorse was chosen as the mascot because the creator of Proteas thought a seahorse best represented the nature of the competition and the athlete's constant goal of achieving excellency. And that's pretty much all of the information about Proteas. As you could probably tell, some of the Paralympic mascots don't have that much to discuss about them. Proteas gets a 9 out of 10. Although there's not much backstory for him, I do like the design a lot. Next up is the mascot for the 2006 Winter Paralympic Games that took place in Torino, Italy, and the mascot was a snowflake named Aster. And first of all, what an incredibly boring design. It's literally just a snowflake with a face. And the reason a snowflake was chosen, other than the fact that it's winter themed, was because the snowflake is unique, just like the athletes that were competing in the Paralympics. Aster's design gets a 2.5 out of 10. The next mascot came during the 2008 Summer Paralympic Games that took place in Beijing, China, and the mascot was a cow named Fu Niu Lele, which translates to Lucky Happy Ox. Before Fu Niu Lele was chosen, the mascot was originally going to be one of these three: a river dolphin, the Monkey King, or Neja. But after issues were found about all three, this guy here came up with a cow mascot because he was once a cow herder and was familiar with the animal. Fu Niu Lele was meant to represent a harmonious relationship between mankind and nature, and also represented athletes with disabilities striving to make progress. The colors for Fu Niu Lele come from traditional Chinese New Year drawings and toys. And this little mark here on his head comes from a dandelion seed pappus. Fu Niu Lele gets a score of 7.5 out of 10. Next is the mascot for the 2010 Winter Paralympic Games that took place in Vancouver, Canada, and the mascot was this thing named Sumi. Now Sumi isn't your ordinary animal mascot, but is actually a hybrid of a few animals. He wears the hat of a killer whale, has the arms of a thunderbird, which is a very large bird that controls the weather in Native American mythology, mythology. And finally, has the legs of a black bear. I'm not exactly sure what animal the head comes from, but if I had to guess, it's probably a bear. Sumi gets his name from the Salish word Sumesh, which means guardian spirit. And Sumi's unconventional design was meant to represent the diverse backgrounds of the athletes in the Paralympics that year. Sumi's design gets an 8 out of 10. The next mascot is this metal creature named Mandeville, who was the mascot for the 2012 Summer Paralympic Games that took place in London, England. Mandeville's name comes from the Stoke Mandeville Hospital, which organized the Stoke Mandeville Games, which is considered to be kind of like an original version of the Paralympics. Mandeville is meant to represent friendship. I don't exactly know how this represents friendship, but okay. And on Mandeville's head, he has two interesting design choices. First is this little light here, which is meant to be a reference to a London taxi. And then he has these spikes, which are meant to be a reference to the Paralympics logo. Mandeville gets a 3.5 out of 10. The next mascots came during the 2014 Winter Paralympic Games that took place in Sochi, Russia. And there were actually two mascots this time. Here are Snowflake and Ray of Light. And there's not too much to say about these two, so just like I did with Otto, I'm gonna tell you their lore. Their lore begins with Ray of Light leaving his home planet, which is described as being perpetually hot. After landing on Earth, he found out that he and the people of Earth had a lot in common. Particularly, they both had a love for sports. So Ray of Light took up Nordic skiing, but after a while he began to feel lonely, after realizing that he was the only alien on Earth. But this loneliness did not last, because one night a shooting star fell to Earth. But this was no regular shooting star, it was Snowflake, an alien from a perpetually cold planet. So long story short, the two become friends, and create the sports of ice sledge hockey and wheelchair curling. Wow, what a fantastic story. Can't say the same about these designs though. I do not like them. Snowflake and Ray of Light get a 2.5 out of 10. Moving along, the next mascot came during the 2016 Summer Paralympic Games that took place in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. And the mascot was this guy here named Tom. Tom got his name through a vote, and the name selected was a reference to Brazilian musician Tom Jobim. Tom's design is meant to represent the diverse plant life in Brazil. In his official backstory, Tom was created from the joy of Brazilians, and his mission is to inspire everybody to use creativity and determination to always reach further and have fun. There was also an official Lego set that featured buildable figures of Tom and the Olympic mascot for that year, Vinicius. Speaking of Vinicius, Tom appeared in several animated shorts alongside him. Tom's design gets an 8.5 out of 10. The next mascot was an Asian black bear named Bondabi. Bondabi was the mascot for the 2014 Winter Paralympic Games that took place in Pyeongchang, South Korea. And the last time the Paralympics took place in South Korea, the mascots were Asian black bears, just like Bondabi. So picking an Asian black bear again was kind of like a reference to the 1988 games. The first part of Bondabi's name means half moon, which references the half moon on his chest. And the other part means to celebrate the competition. Bondabi gets a 6.5 out of 10. The next mascot is a robot named Somedi. Somedi was the mascot for the 2020 Summer Paralympic Games that took place in Tokyo, Japan. Somedi gets her name from a Some Yoshino, which is a type of cherry blossom. Her name is also meant to reference the phrase "so mighty" in English. The cherry blossom was also the inspiration behind her color scheme. Now I could be wrong, but I believe that Somedi is the first mascot I've discussed so far that has superpowers. Yeah, you heard me right. Superpowers. Somedi has the powers of telekinesis and telepathy, which makes me wonder, would she be allowed to participate in the games? Or would she be disqualified for having an unfair advantage? I don't know, she's not real, so I guess it doesn't matter. Somedi's design gets a 7.5 out of 10. The next mascot came during the 2022 Winter Paralympic Games that took place in Beijing, China. And the mascot this time around was quite unique. The mascot was a living Chinese lantern named Shui Ronron. The reason a Chinese lantern was chosen as the mascot was because the games took place around the time of the Chinese New Year, and it just fits the theme quite nicely. At the top of Shui Ronron's head, a pattern of doves can be seen, and this was to symbolize the peaceful friendship and highlight the characteristics of the place where the events are held. And yeah, he looks pretty neat, and that's about all there is to say about him. Shui Ronron gets a score of 7 out of 10. And after that, we finally made it to the year 2024. I can't wait to see what the Paralympic mascot is. The Olympic mascot for this year, Fridge, is kind of boring. So I hope this one looks better. They look the same. This is the Paralympic Fridge, the mascot for the 2024 Summer Paralympic Games that will be taking place in Paris, France. And he looks almost exactly the same as the Olympic mascot. The difference is being he has a prosthetic leg and a red shoe. And I have nothing else to say about him. The Paralympic Fridge gets a 5 out of 10. Thankfully though, we don't have to end on that lackluster mascot, because the 2026 Winter Paralympics that will be taking place in these cities in Italy has had its mascot already revealed, and it's a stoat named Milo. And while Milo does look quite similar to the Olympic mascot for that year, Tina, I think there's enough of a difference to make him not as boring as the Paralympic Fridge. The most notable detail about Milo is probably the fact that he's missing a leg, so to make up for this, he uses his tail in its place. And I gotta say, I like that idea a lot. Tina and Milo are also accompanied by these living snowdrop flowers, known as the Flow. Milo's design gets an 8 out of 10. And with that, we have covered every summer and winter Paralympic mascot. So let's take a look at who I consider to be the top 3 Paralympic mascots. In third place, I have Otto and Sumi tied. And then for second place, I have Tom. And then finally, in first place, I have Proteas. And before we end, a subscription and a like would be greatly appreciated. And feel free to leave your favorite Paralympic mascot in the comments. And with that, I'll see you next time. Goodbye.